Round two with Drake Scifers. People, welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We're going to talk about use cases for AI when it comes to content, podcasting, sales, and agents. Agents can be fun. Agents are okay. What's instead of recruiting an SDR, right? Can I have an SDR agent, an AI bot that does it for you? Can I have an agent for AE? So me and Drake are gonna nerd out on this today. This podcast is brought to you by podpar.com. If you want to start scale, be invited to pod. Drake, welcome to the pod. Can you reintroduce yourself briefly and tell us about some of your early use case to get the juices flowing?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. So I'm a CEO of Content Gym. We do content and podcast launching and stuff like that for leaders, and been in the AI space, playing around with a lot of stuff for content generation, just things to make life easier for my editors or for people who are trying to figure out, if I get on camera, what do I talk about? And so, yeah.
I'm gonna steal the gym in your company name. I like it. It's like the gym days in the OpenAI. What did they call that one? OpenAI gym, when they were training GPT 2 or 3. Anyway, that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, gym is fun. Is where you train. I mean, for most performant people, right? Gym doesn't sound great for anyone that is not high performer. Most of the time, I'm generalizing here, but yeah. So I'm stealing that. Talking about that content, SEO AI. I've got a bunch of people on my pod to discuss about that. I'm not too excited about it. I've never been excited about SEO. I am excited about quality content. What's his name again? Nate. Gonna find out his name, but yeah, he was great at creating content. Uses ConvertKit for his newsletters. Not Nathan Barry, but Nat Eliason.
Okay.
That guy. Do you know Nat Eliason?
I don't. Sounds like an interesting guy though.
Yeah. Very good content. So if you go to nateliason.com, he's got a bunch of articles, and basically he links everything with everything. So let me just share my screen here so people can see. And it's high quality content, and it's linked in his website. So what happens for intellectuals like me, which normally are people with cash, we go into a rabbit hole and we just don't get out of his website, because we click on one link, it goes to another, we click on another, and basically never ends. So basically, yeah, I'm quite bullish on that, and I want to reproduce that. But what do you feel about AI based content and SEO?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that I've been really interested in, I just saw this the other day with Google, where Google is changing the way they do search, and you have access to it. If you use a VPN, I saw a preview of it, and what they're doing is they're taking, like, let's say you want to look at electric bikes, and you have like the top 10 articles on electric bikes. They're all 3,000 word articles referencing a certain bike. What GPT or what Google was talking about with their generative AI is scraping all that, using AI to compile it, writing a summary based on the question you asked, and then providing videos that might be interesting to you in your search results. And so it's completely changing the way that search results work, which is why, I still think there is a place where you are using SEO to generate content to be indexed, but with video and stuff like that, they're going to start scraping all that stuff anyway. And so ultimately it's going to come down to whoever's providing the best content, and the best content is going to be, I think, done through video, where people are engaging with it, and that'll be views, clicks, and attention, because ultimately what Google's trying to get by giving you search results is giving you the thing that other people believe is the best result, right? And so, just with us talking here, what's it called? It's not Podmatch. Podchaser. So Podchaser just released. I know the CEO is actually from Oklahoma, and he, I believe it's Podchaser. But anyway, they just launched a tool that's going to be they're going to be scraping AI, or using AI to scrape all podcasts, even audio only ones. And they're going to be using that to create audience demographics to help with discovery for people. And so that's already something that I think that just came out yesterday or the day before. And so like stuff like that is gonna happen. And so if I can watch it, I'm gonna like that better than reading it. And so I think that SEO is going to start to die, but it's going to change. I should say change, right? I think it's going to change. The way we think of text SEO is going to be different, but it's going to change. It's going to change fast.
Right. Couple of things here. So I think what you're basically saying is that the 0.1% will keep on making great content. And they might use AI as a sparring partner rather than the output, right? So I think that won't change. I think that will stay the way it is. The second part, I mean, you can agree or disagree with that one. The second part, like that gets my brain fired up is, what if there could be video editing in real time? Because that's the future of podcasting, is that they become videos in themselves while you and we talk, and you can picture in 50 years from now, it would be directly linked to a Neuralink, and you would get the images that I have in my brain reproduced on screen. That would be pretty wild. But in the short term, I think it is mostly, just taking Shutterstock's videos and introducing them live. You would need a very high power GPU to do that. But then what if this startup, let's say that they get $100 million in funding, they go after that full market? What if they start producing videos for Joe Rogan, without his permission necessarily at the beginning? Because I'm not sure if you've seen the Joe Rogan AI thing on YouTube, and they garner a bunch of views. They strike a partnership with Joe Rogan, and next thing they're generating very good revenue. They can take up a part of first the YouTube and the YouTube views and cash out on that, and they can split also with Joe with the other views and all the sponsors that they generate, and multiply his content even. So what do you think about that idea of like an AI startup? Would obviously be YC based and funded, obviously, that would actually take the best podcasts, the audio version, and create videos out of them at scale.
I think that yeah, I think it could be done. I think that you would see a tool like that get used. So Joe Rogan clips get shared all over the place, right? They're not officially Joe Rogan clips, right? Because he's on Spotify, but you'll see, if I'm scrolling, last night I'm scrolling through my YouTube shorts and I see just tons of Joe Rogan podcast clips, right? And they're not coming from his channel. So I think that you'll see channels like that use it. I think that if you did Joe Rogan, it would be a big publicity thing, because you'd be risking, I think you might be risking a lawsuit with that, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's plenty of times where you do something outrageous to try and generate publicity. I think that you would find a lot of use cases in that with some of maybe the second tier creators. And which you could get still millions of views, because it's going to be easier to get to them than to convince Joe Rogan to use whatever you're using, right? Because for him, I don't know that he would see it as a marginal gain, because he's already got people that are really bought in. But for people who do need something extra to make whatever they're doing better, I think that they're the ones who would be more used to it. And I think that it goes to the way that just typical institutions and processes work, like what you mentioned about the 0.1% being the ones who are doing well. As these systems mature, SEO hadn't been updated in a really long while. It's had minor updates, but nothing has been this fundamental in the way it changes. And so you have systems that get built up, and then we figure out how to game the system, and then the system realizes, okay, everybody's gaming it, and so everything is a derivative of what's ideal. And so once you get to a certain point, technology changes and it flips, and then we do something that actually is meant to produce better results. And you'll see this with video too. Like eventually AI will be generating, full on digital avatars, right? And you're seeing that where people will, automatically they'll have a real life looking avatar that's way more attractive than they are, right? Which will, generate more clicks and more opportunity, because people like to look at attractive people. You'll see that stuff start to get gamed. And then there'll be, somebody will have a filter where we only do real avatars. Like you'll start to see a lot of that stuff happen. And so, yeah, I think real-time editing especially if you have like a risk tolerance bar, like how much do you want to give AI free rein? But yeah, as this stuff advances, and as I say risk tolerance on what you'll allow it to show, how edgy you want it to be with the clips, right? But I do think that that's not going to be very hard, because I don't think as humans we're creative, but there's plenty of things when you do things en masse that can be distilled down into trends.
Right. I'm gonna have the Runway folks on the pod to ask them all these questions and see like where, because it's probably a GPU problem, right? The live video thing. It just doesn't have the power, or they don't have the resources to buy $100 million NVIDIA computers and so forth. But yeah, that'd be pretty game changing on the podcast level, because that's pretty much the back end. If you want, I can see that happening very quickly the next 12 months. Just that as users, we're going to have to pay a shit ton for that. It's going to be like, yeah, probably at least 15, $20 per video.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like, so Google has how many servers indexing the whole internet? Now you're indexing video and even images, even if it's just GIFs, right? So like what Google's computing power needs to be in order to index the whole internet, you're doing that, but for big file sizes, right? Especially if you want quality, right? And so you'll have probably a whole bunch of proxies that it's sorting through at lower file sizes, but then it's showing the real-time stuff. So just the internet bandwidth, just from an internet bandwidth perspective, for the average 4K video stream is anywhere from 12 to 15 megabits per second, right? And so when you're doing that while transmitting remotely over something, the internet connection is required just to have what you and I are doing, right? Because this is 720p, right? So 720p is like less than a meg of internet over the air. But if we're doing it in anything in 4K, then that bumps it up to begin with. And even if you do it in 720p, like just the indexing in that real time, there's a lot of infrastructure stuff that'll need to be changed. But I do think it's a great idea. I think it's a cool thing that can happen. And realistically, who knows how quickly it could come about. So, the people that want to do that, it's kind of like within the next 18 months, I would definitely make sense to see a company like that started. Because the savings in editing would just be insane, right? Just with the cost of editing, the cost of real-time editing and production from a news standpoint.
It's live,
Yeah.
It's we're doing a live, and it's just so much more entertainment. And obviously there would be various video editing methodologies. There would be live subtitles, obviously. Would be super entertaining, a la Mr. Beast. Now Mr. Beast content starts with great scripts and planning, and every 3 seconds rehooking the attention of the user. Maybe would the AI even need us for that? I think the AI would be way better than me at being entertaining. So I could put it at a ratio of entertainment vs education. Obviously, it's way more complex than these two variables. There's probably like a pie chart of 10 variables. But do you think, the AI would make it a better job than me? And then where would the Charles avatar come into this?
I think that, well, honestly, I think that education would probably be one of the better applications, because it doesn't have to be live, right? So if you're doing it in education, having auto B-roll where, say you're a teacher and you're talking about you're teaching a subject, right? If you have immediate illustrations that are able to visualize what the teacher is doing, what the teacher is saying in real time, then I think that becomes a super powerful tool for education. And that's, I think, lower hanging fruit than the podcast, because teachers are under resourced anyways. And so if you're able to provide education or tutoring or anything like that, I think we'll see some of these sub education platforms, or even some of these online education platforms where you're teaching people, not necessarily the traditional, English, writing, math, stuff like that, but once you get into like complex calculus fields or anything like that, where you have like these tutors that are making tons of money, I think that's an easy application for it, because like I said, it doesn't even have to be live.
Right. But I don't like that model of teaching, which is listening to a teacher. I think ideally it would be to rethink the roots of that, and it would be immediate and live interaction with the children. When they ask why, Why, daddy? Why, daddy? Well, the AI would have forever why patient, and it would go to the very bottom of the why.
Mhm,
Plus, it would suggest things, right? So the
mhm,
children, why is the Earth round? Well, gravity, mass. Why is it blue? The hydrogen in the atmosphere. And did you know that Mars was red because of the iron
mhm.
content on Mars, for example? So it would create these forever rabbit holes, and I think that's how the human brain works. It's wired for that, but the education system is fucked, in my opinion. I don't have other words for
Yeah.
that. It kills the baby and the egg, because the human brain is meant to expand in various directions. It's like neurons that are created. If you look in real time in the
Mhm,
brain, it's like these branches, right? And we're boxing the shit out of that.
mhm.
And I think this not only limits society, and its growth right now in terms of GDP, economic, and all of that, but also it kills our heart in the process. It kills the curiosity, which I think is one of the most powerful force in this realm. What do you think?
I would agree with that. And you're talking to someone, I was homeschooled my whole life. And so this whole like freedom of being able to explore was something that I was able to take advantage of, even though, even though the resources and tools for the internet weren't quite there at the same level they are today. I'm a huge proponent of alternative forms of education because I do think that, you know, I was able to do, when I was young, I was doing uh, work like, so let's say before pre seventh grade, I would do like hardcore schoolwork from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. and be done. Right. And then I would go take the standardized tests, at the end of the year, and I'd be testing at the high school level. Right. Because I had so much care and attention from my mom. But if you think about the education with an AI tutor where they can, like I said, like there, some of it, I think there will be a place for video in it because I think the video is what prompts curiosity. Kids love video, they love to watch, but then being able to they watch, a 5 minute video and then they're able to talk to their chat GPT tutor and ask those questions that allow them to do the diving, like you're saying. I think the video will be the prompt and the introduction, but then
Right.
the actual agent will be the private tutor that's able to help them carry on and allow them to do exactly what you were doing with that Nat Eliason stuff, where the child is able to explore and they're able to build that neural net of web of education based on their own curiosity, which is amazing,
Right.
right? But I do think the video will be what prompts it.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
the more engaging that video becomes, the more curiosity is enlivened. Because if I talk about the Earth, like I'm talking about it right now, versus the Earth, and I'm talking about the Pacific Ocean, you see a globe and the globe's spinning and it's zooming in on the ocean and it's, going across the water. It's going to create visual imagery that sparks curiosity. And then that curiosity is what the child can dive into.
Right. I agree with that. And because, yeah, you need a prompt. You cannot have nothing in the external environment. Nothing is created internally without external
Mhm.
stimuli.
Yeah.
So that only makes sense. The V1 of that would be a camera that would track my face and my interests, right? Like in that
Mhm.
video, where my eyes move in the video.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
from that, it would learn what is my interest as a kid. Is it
Mhm.
whales? Is it nature? Is it business, money, history? And it would give me a bit more of that. It would keep on suggesting and constantly A/B testing, because you don't want to guide someone. But that's the existential question, right? Like,
Mhm.
should you give them what they want? Should you fully listen to their gene pool? Because, yeah, that the gene pool really changes where people put their attention. So what percentage of what they want would you give them, and how would you continue giving them other stimuli?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that, the nice thing is some of that gets to be set because it becomes so expansive. You're able to, it's become the whole idea of the communication between the teacher and the parent becomes significantly easier, right? Because you have the AI agent that's actually paying attention to what the child is doing. You have more feedback and more opportunities to do that kind of stuff. But now imagine that they're doing that within the Apple, like Apple Vision, right? The Apple Vision thing. So it's now super immersive because the VR is what gives you the eye tracking, right? And so you're able to see the worlds and be immersed in the worlds. I mean, it's going to be really rough for museums.
Yes. I
Right?
interviewed Nick Gray not so long ago on this podcast.
Hmm.
He's the founder of Museum Hack. Not sure if you heard
Oh, yeah.
about him. And it was such a cool business. He's gonna survive. I think the 0.1% will always survive.
Hmm.
They will pivot, but yeah, it will be hard for them. And yeah, didn't want to interrupt your train of thought there.
No, you're good. I just think that that is going to be good for education because you're going to be able to give parents more granularity in what they're doing. And so I actually think I'm pretty uh, bullish on just homeschooling in general and how it works in the future because I think you're going to see these tools become significantly better than they were when I was younger. And you're going to see, uh, you know, if why would you settle for a subpar education when you don't have to, right? These tools are getting cheaper, right? And so I think there's going to be a whole lot that is going to be available over the next 2 decades where I think you're going to see dramatic change in the education space because most people are already fed up with it anyway. And I think you do it like the Tesla model where you're going to have it's going to start at the private high-end schools, but then they're just going to use that to test and beta test, and then it's going to be able to trickle down because it's you're able to mass market things, and software is way easier to mass market than something as expensive as a car.
I think to my last question, like the children, like what is the ideal direction? I would picture some sort of ikigai,
Mhm.
between his genes, his parents, what society needs, what he can makes money, and so forth. What do you think of that system? Does it sound a bit more fair than 100% control on the parents or 100% control on his gene pool?
Yeah, I think that I love the Ikigai because I think that that is going to be something where uh, you're making able to make suggestions to the parents, right? And so, you know, parents are going to be able to have things suggested to them based on the child um, what the child's aptitudes are. Now you can see that I could see that going. There's obviously two ways that can go, right? Who's controlling what's recommended. So everybody's going to freak out about that. But that's the negative spin of it. The positive spin of it is, yeah, you're able to see this child has the potential to be, a doctor or a lawyer, or they are super interested in science, or just even materials science, right? So they want to know what batteries are made of, right? And battery tech is going to be huge, right? So they're interested in batteries and how all that works. And how do we get them interested in that? We get them interested in that with unique visuals that are, showing how this stuff works, how the electrons are moving, how the different elements interplay. So there's positives and negatives to that, but yeah, I love the idea of the Ikigai, um, and overlapping with how that is, because ultimately that's what parents want. And I think that's why I love that you brought up that term, because that's what as a parent I want a child that's living a flourishing life and isn't stuck somewhere where they are life is being sucked away from them. I want a life that they are encouraged to live and live to the fullest.
The child key guy.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna TM the shit out of that.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna swear at my school. I'm not sure if I told you, but I'm gonna start the school in 2 years. That's why
Oh,
it's a
cool.
passion for me. Not a physical one. It's gonna be a Zoom, and it's gonna be 15 CEOs talking to these children on a daily basis. There's gonna be sports, obviously,
Mhm.
meditation, uh, win-winning, and relationship building, and there's going to be their AI teacher that's going to be 100% of the time with them. To come back to podcasting. So we
Mhm.
covered the avatar use case, we covered the live video. What about the front end? We know Podmatch. I think we both use it.
Mhm.
I use cold email to do that, and I'm pretty successful at it. That works. There's a bunch of replies in my mailbox. I wish an AI could just sort that out and respond for me. And that
Mhm.
seems to be pretty easy for me because I send the same templates many times a day. It could certainly learn from that.
Mhm.
Um, But there could be potentially a better system, right? That would fetch, I don't know, Dave Asprey and tell him that I'm a biohacker, that I've been listening to his stuff for years, and
Mhm.
he's invited to the pod. And then the assistant would take care of the full details. So on the front end, what would be your AI use cases there?
I mean, I think one of the most obvious cases is having AI be able to read the digital footprint and the digital text, whatever text and whatever videos that they've already put out there, and then to help formulate questions that are going to be the really good questions that would ask them based on previous things that they've been asked, how they've responded. Because you'll have, I had this on my podcast. I'd have some guests that were really good, and I had, more good guests than not as good guests. But the whole part of researching people, where I would listen to the podcasts ahead of time, some of the places where they've been guests, and having to go through that very labor intensive, time intensive process of trying to actually filter out the good parts and the parts would be interesting to an audience. I think that would be a really beneficial use of AI to make the research and the questions better. And even a real-time agent, that would actually be listening to what's being said and maybe even putting up different questions that would be good, even if it's 3 choices, right? To help guide you or just offer you something uh, based on what's being said, right? Because so like even in this conversation, when I am saying something, I may, be talking, I may have, talk for a full minute, and there may be 3 things you wanted to ask a question on, right? But if you don't have, if the next person is talking, you have to like keep listening simultaneously while thinking of what the next question is going to be. And as humans, we're wired for it, but anything that can augment that, I think, is a benefit. In real time, but also in the pre-work of actually being able to ask the questions based on who they are, what their life experience is, and how where they are at this point in time.
Love that. I've been using OpenAI as ChatGPT to create questions for guests for
Mhm.
when I started this pod because I was lacking confidence in my interviewing skill, but then I found out it's way better to just come up with them on the fly, else it's really intellectually boring for me. And
Mhm.
I think that's the main purpose of the pod. So, okay, we've got guest selection, we've got getting in contact with them, we've got the questions, maybe some kind of analytic, like you and I talked, that would analyze the words and facial expression and be like, the guest is starting to fuel out, wake him
Mhm.
up with this word, this question, or maybe he felt offended. So maybe in your next question, you should say a quick sorry or something.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it could be interesting. I think that the big thing is the way where my brain goes is immediately to like the different personality types of the people that are asking. Like some people that are genuinely more curious, and that's a gift of theirs. So like that's one thing that you have is you're genuinely curious, and so you're listening, you're enjoying the back and forth because you're not quite sure what's going to be said. And so because you enjoy it, you want to probe deeper into those depths. I like to do that too. Some people enjoy podcasting, but they just might not be as gifted at that, right? And so anything that can help augment people in the places where they're weak, I think is going to be a strong suit. Um, yeah, that's kind of, I don't think I answered your question though. Like, because that jumped out at me though, is like I think that's where you're able, like the product that works best for you and me might not work best for every other podcaster. And so that's the beauty of it, of creating these systems that will work no matter what your strengths and weaknesses are. And that's, the beauty of competition.
Right. No, that's a fun one. Other use cases. Let's talk about agents for this last 6 minutes here. Sales AI, SDR AI, AE AI. I want to hire a bunch of these agents, even if they fail. Humans fail too, and they consume twice as much as your energy, So the bot will learn and it will scale. So how soon do you think we'll have these AI agents, in what position and what use cases precisely?
I think that you'll see them pretty quickly. I think one of the biggest hindrances will be the microphones that are on the devices that are using to call in. So let me give the viewers a scenario. Like I had my last company was an internet service provider, right? So I'm helping deliver internet to homes and businesses. We have people that are calling in with problems, questions, but usually problems. Nobody calls their internet service provider when they're happy. And so just from taking several, a whole bunch of the hundreds of those calls myself and, hearing the calls that my employees were doing, a lot of the questions were about 80% there, right? And so we think of our non-human counterparts in tech support as really bad, and they are, right? No, most of the time, like I'm asking for a question and it doesn't fall into one of 6 predefined responses, and that's really frustrating, right? But if you're able to like actually integrate a real large language model at the level of ChatGPT with voice, then you're able to actually have a more intelligent search that's happening. And you're able to go through, because I know that about 70 to 80% of these calls are all the same and follow the same format. My people are saying the exact same thing. Now I'm able to, have an agent, an AI agent that's able to actually use natural human language to communicate in a meaningful way. And I think that once we get over the barrier to where that is much more human-like and something that is like a chat GPT in the response, you're going to do much better. And people aren't going to be so upset by, those automated telephone systems that really suck right now. So I think that's a use case. I think that I actually saw an ad recently that was an AI conversation with a guy, and it was a sales conversation. And so it was an AI bot making an outbound sales call. And it was good. Like I was shocked at how good it was with responding to the injections, being like, yeah, I totally, it was selling like the Apple Vision headset. And it was, the guy gave an objection. Hey, I'm just not interested. Totally cool. Just one quick question. And then actually asking an intelligent question. And the sequencing of it, because I like studying sales and, how we walk people, down the path of a sale. Like it was actually following what would be a really good sales process without being generic. Now, granted, it's an ad, so they're going to show their best use case, but that exists today. On September 29th, 2023, that exists. And so that's only going to get better. And ChatGPT, I just saw when I was looking at the news before we got on here that, you can now use voice, right? So ChatGPT can speak now. I haven't tested it or played with it yet, but that's all coming and that's going to be fast. And if you're impressed with the prompts that ChatGPT is giving, you're going to be impressed when it's able to talk back to you. And so I really think that a lot of lower, and let's be real, a lot of people don't actually enjoy those kinds of, sales phones getting yelled at all day jobs, right? If they're able to use AI to diffuse some of that and then push it higher level to an actual person who can care and know that, hey, someone is coming to me because I have a unique problem to solve, right? And I get to be the hero as the customer support person. I get to be the hero of this journey. Well, that makes my job more rewarding than, oh, my card got declined. I need to change my credit card. Like nobody feels rewarded by actually processing that transaction and changing that. So I think that I actually see that as a positive thing. People look at, oh, that's a negative thing. It's going to take away jobs. Jobs are just going to change. So it's the same way I can use AI to write SEO content that is just a derivative and not very good and doesn't actually help the reader, right? The way that's getting replaced is the same way that people doing that sort of low level job are either going to be upskilled with AI or they're going to be replaced to hopefully do something more meaningful with their life with a different type of job.
So let's say that, I want to become this AI oligarch. So I find a company that charges me $100 per AI agent a month. An employee would charge 20 times that.
Mhm.
And the AI, let's assume that it would scrape all my shit. And
Yeah.
I'm a public person, so all my stuff is there. It would know exactly my goal. It would consult me. It would ask me a bunch of questions. I would answer in an instant chat. The company would probably have me sign a disclaimer. If the AI fucks up something, I'd sign it.
Mhm.
Then I'd tell the agent, let's let's assume that it's a sales agent, but I would almost automatically follow up with a product agent, right? Because why onboard that much folks if you have a shitty product that will churn and ruin your reputation? So okay, and off we go. The AI start outreaching on my Apollo account. It has access to all of that. It sends me buttons with like, oh, you need to upgrade this plan so that we can scale more. We're waiting for payment tomorrow. You should have money to pay that. That's it. I start from scratch, right? I have zero in the bank account. And off it goes. It's scale. It's in all the time zones in the world. It makes money while I sleep. And in the meanwhile, I hire, that would be for cold email. I hire this product AI agent, and that takes care of my clients. It asks them to start their Apollo account, their SendGrid account, plug their credit card. It's really patient, and it explains very well. Again, it scrapes all my stuff, and it starts campaign for these clients. I mean, all of that seems simple. It's quite hard because it needs to understand like all the tool and all that's happening on the screen. Now, would Apollo start such a thing before is a question, but when do you think that's a viable reality? Let's call it in 2 to 3 years from now. What would be the error rate? And do you think it would create AI oligarchs on the other end of people that just pay these AIs, are not scared to deploy them and do that at scale?
I think that you will see the same cycle that has followed with lots of business. So you will see the AI oligarchs, like some of the biggest companies will be, big, right? But when you have a lot of open source AI models that are becoming a big deal, I think that you'll see. So we've got a whole bunch of people running wild with AI, right? So it's, decentralized, tons of people going all over the place. And we think of the big ones like, ChatGPT, but there are other large learning language models that are like other LLMs that are like growing right now. You will see that, I think, consolidate. You'll see some consolidation, but then the use cases will be different, right? And so, because right now it's indicative on what proprietary data sets you can use to feed it, right? And so, Apollo may do stuff, but Apollo may not have access to the same digital entrepreneurs who I like their sales process better. So like if you go on YouTube and look up like Jeremy Miner or something like that, like he has a unique sales process and I like his sales process. I want to integrate that specific sales process and not the processes that Apollo does. So I think that level of customization is where you're going to see a lot of decentralization. And what it's going to do is that I think once again, people can freak out and go, oh, it's going to kill jobs, but it will allow for a lot more creativity in the different ways that you want to do it, right? Because I won't be constrained by these, the massive behemoths of I have to do it their way, right? I will have the creativity to do things the way I want, and there'll be fewer barriers that stand in my way of accomplishing what I'm trying to accomplish because the AI will be adaptive to me. And so I think at this point, the things are, if I have access to proprietary data sets or proprietary ways of thinking and intellectual property in my head, and I'm able to take that and distribute that, then that's going to be where the growth comes from human creativity, which I don't think we truly have an understanding of because of the gatekeepers in these large corporations that are keeping things down because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the access to information to unlock all that there is to unlock, right? And that's what I think AI does, is it unlocks a lot of people. All right, the solopreneur who has a great idea, but doesn't have the ability to scale things up quickly because there are certain things that they lack, but they're really good at this one thing. If you're able to take them and scale them, because I mean, if you think about every business unit needs accounting, right? Every business unit needs some form of marketing. Every business unit needs infrastructure and IT, right? But the person who's the creative doesn't necessarily know how to do all of those things individually, but there are ways that AI helps with that kind of stuff. Right. And so I think you're going to see tons of solo or small team businesses that are able to, do the Instagram to the Facebook, where it's, a team of 10 that's sold for $1 billion and the revenue per employee is insane. Right. So I think you're going to see that kind of stuff where people are more fractional and there's more companies and there's more fractional employment. There's more gig work based on being able to do the things that you want to do because AI is going to be mixing and matching, matchmaking people I need this done. Okay, here's people that are actually good at it, and the AI is recognizing the past and previous work. They're analyzing that, going, okay, hey, here, this is the person who needs to do it.
Do you think companies are gonna downscale massively as a result? Do you think that they're gonna be like, yo, these employees are really not productive in the end? I don't know why we've been taking that bet, and they're gonna start massively de-investing in everything human, including human resources.
I think that, yeah, I think that they will have to. I think some of them will do it on their own volition. I think that sometime it's going to be easier and easier to displace these large corporations, right? There are certain big companies that don't actually need to be big. And so I think you're going to see more and more smaller companies be able to do things that big companies are doing right now. And so sometimes, on the one hand, yes, I do think that companies will adopt AI and be useful and people will be out of jobs. But I also think there'll be significantly more people who look at these kinds of things and are able to turn, now maybe they're able to turn their side hustle into a full-time business because they have AI to help them scale and do outreach, like you mentioned with Apollo. They can do outreach better. Right. And so they're able to actually get more leads, which allows them to replace their full-time income. So you're going to see a balancing in that. It's going to compress from both sides. It's going to compress from the high end with corporations laying people off, but the downside, the bottom end is going to compress up to where it puts more pressure on the corporations. So the whole world, I think, is going to be changing, and you're going to see there's going to be compression, but the middle is going to expand.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you, Drake?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's a good place to go. Just LinkedIn, my name, Drake Scifers. If you search that, you should see me. See me in front of my microphone and my profile picture.
And I'm Charles Cormier, host. That was another CEO Wisdom Pod.